My name is Beth Marcellus, and I'm the Instructional Design Team Lead for the Education and Technology Innovation Support Office. And I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us as we talk about the Jigsaw instructional strategy. And today is going to be an introduction to the Jigsaw strategy. I'll let you take a look at the objectives. You'll learn a little bit about the strategy and see an example of how to use it in the classroom or in an online environment. So without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Linda Macaulay.
Thank you very much. Well, we're going to get started today, and we'll first look at what exactly is Jigsaw. And it is a technique that was actually created several decades ago by Elliot Aronson in 1971. And it was originally conceived as a way to combat racial bias among elementary age students. And then he used it with his graduate students to help in the desegregated South to overcome distrust and misunderstandings with a diverse group of learners. And what we realize is that cooperative learning and working together actively and engaged in a project allowed the students to learn from each other, to teach each other, and to build that sense of community that they were in such need of at that time. But it actually now has been shown to be a very effective learning strategy above and beyond the original goal that they had when they started using it back in 1971. So when should you use the Jigsaw method? It's very useful when you have discrete topics with lots of content that you want to break up into smaller pieces so that students can learn the broad bit of content and have some control over how they do so. It is a great option when you want some variation from a typical faculty lecture because it allows the students to have ownership of their learning and allows them to have some control over that, as well as building that sense of community, which obviously was that original purpose of the strategy. So how do you prepare if you want to use a Jigsaw project? It is important that you define your objectives first so that you make sure the activity you design actually will meet your learning goals. And then you should chunk that content into smaller pieces so that individual students will be in charge of that one piece of the puzzle, so to speak. That's the Jigsaw terminology. Make sure that you provide explicit instructions for the students so that they understand the workflow of this Jigsaw project. And that includes things like how they will form their Jigsaw group, how they will come together in expert groups to complete their task, who will have responsibility for different pieces of the project, and what the due dates are, what the requirements are, and what kinds of assessment they might need, or what's the outcome of their time in their Jigsaw group by the end. It's important to prepare that scaffolding and any prompts they might need, any resources that they might need to complete the project, and then make sure you've determined how you plan to assess the work, whether it's individual or in a group or both. You have all those options available to you with a Jigsaw project, depending on how you would like to design it. So let's look with a graphic here about what the basic steps of a Jigsaw method are, knowing that there are some variations, but this is the basic workflow of a typical Jigsaw project. We start here at the top, where you figure out what your content is that you want the students to become comfortable with, and you break that up into pieces. So think about the little individual Jigsaw puzzle pieces that each student will be responsible for. And you'll notice here then that each student gets assigned one of those chunks. So this boy in blue will read number 1. This person with glasses will read number 2. the girl with long curly hair reads number 3, and so on. Each person is in charge of taking notes and becoming comfortable with their individual puzzle piece. They will take time to learn that content and in some sense become the expert of that topic that they were assigned. And then everybody who read the same thing comes together in their expert group. So this is an important piece of this where, depending on the size of your class, will determine how many students read each chunk. So in this sense, we can see this is a pretty small class because there's only 3 people reading each chunk. And so it's only a group of 15 students that came together for this. But you can make your groups as large or as small as you need to, depending on, first of all, your room size and also the size of your class that you're teaching. So once all the folks that read the same thing come together, they learn from each other. And it's the job of that expert group to make sure that every person in that expert group is comfortable. So they answer each other's questions, they clear up misconceptions, they review their notes with each other to make sure everybody is on the same page and understands that particular chunk of the content that they've been assigned. They might be responsible for creating something like a note sheet or a PowerPoint slide, depending on how you design your activity. But once they are the expert in that topic and they've narrowed down what they think is most important, they will disperse back into their jigsaw. And that's this last part of this graphic where one person from each topic chunk is now all put together in a group. And that jigsaw group now teaches each other their content. So the boy who read that number 1 chunk is going to make sure everybody else in the group understands it. The student that read the number 2 chunk is going to make sure everybody in their jigsaw group understands that concept, and so on. And at the end, then you do whatever evaluation you've chosen to do, whether it is a group evaluation where the whole jigsaw group works together, or it could be an individual assessment as well, or both, to make sure everybody now has mastered all of the content that you had in the topic that you were having them review. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kuo to give you another example of what this might look like in a higher ed situation.
Thank you, Dr. Macaulay. So we already introduced a lot about what is the jigsaw methods and its steps. And I think an example will be able to explain how we practice it in our teaching in higher education. So here, this example is about, I want students to learn about motivation theories and how the motivation affects the human performance. So I define the expected learning outcomes. That is, students, they need to learn about motivation theories, and they need to identify at least 3 critical points about to the human performance. And this is a group work. So they will work as a group, and at the end, they need to present their finding as a group to the class. I estimate that this example will spend about 3 weeks along with my teaching. In order to make this jigsaw project clear to students, instructor has to prepare a lot, and that's including for the learning motivation theories. I need to select readings. If I feel like there's an external expert can support my teaching in this motivation theories and human performance, I certainly need to contact the experts to support my teaching for this project. So, for example, if I have a class size about 30 students, if I select 5 readings, I define 5 readings, that would be a perfect idea. That means 5 people in one group, and each student will pick up 1 reading to study. So I call that 5 groups as a jigsaw group. here I use Jigsaw group, but you might notice some people using different terms for this purpose. The idea, because we talk about Jigsaw project, I use Jigsaw group in this presentation. You can call it a focus group. You can call it experimental group. And the idea is that they will form as a group and work together. The complex of the Jigsaw project is there's another group we call expert group. So a Jigsaw group, you can define as pick out students as a leader, or you can ask students to be and just actively pick up one reading. And each student, they have the same reading. They will meet in the expert group later. So in the expert group, they're going to study the content in depth, and they will learn from the instructors or expert from outside, or maybe from the prompts. So instructor has to prepare what student needs to do in the expert group. And another important piece will be instructor need to know what he or she is looking for assessment. In this case, we ask students to have a group presentation. So we need to prepare what is the assessment criteria for the presentation. So the instructor will define the presentation criteria and in a rubric, so students will be able to follow it and work together. So you can see the entire Jigsaw project require really a lot of preparation. You need to prepare explicit instruction and the detailed steps in order to help students to not to get lost and also become active learners. So for this 3 weeks project, the schedule look like this, and this is just one example. You might be able to adjust it based on your design. The week 1, as you prepare all the materials, we introduce to make announcement to students about this project, and the student needs to study the assigned reading. And the Jigsaw group, students in the Jigsaw group, they discuss the project and they understand what they need to do and how to share the responsibilities. And they might start to take notes, and the notes is about how they're going to prepare for the group presentation and how each person need to decide to talk when they meet with other students in the expert group. And in week 2, they make with the expert group, they learn from each other, they learn from the instructor, and each person will take notes and share the notes with their Jigsaw group members later in the Jigsaw group. And week 3, since they already learn about all the materials, in this case, they already they understand the 5 articles about, so they start to work on the project, and they prepare for the group presentation, find the critical notes, and at least 3 critical points to support the human performance, and they present in the class. So this is the example for the Jigsaw. The ideas for this implementation is we start from form the Jigsaw group. Students, they learn about how to take a responsibility for their roles in the Jigsaw group. And then they understand they need to respond for study of a specific assigned document, assigned reading for the mid-expert group. And then they complete the task together as when we put the puzzle in the whole piece here. So the Jigsaw idea, Jigsaw projects really give students the opportunity to work along independently and also work together as a group. Assessment for the Jigsaw project is a very critical item. We can have assessment for individuals, or we can have assessment for group, or we can have both based on your pedagogy. Assessment for individual, it can be a quiz, it can be essay writing, you can give them assignment to complete, they ask the individual presentation or write a reflection piece about the project. For the assessment as a group, certainly a group presentation like an example, we can have a group report, or we can even have a debate between the groups. So that will be really based on each person's idea, what you like students to work on and to show their learning. Jigsaw project could be flexible. If you feel like 3 weeks is long too much, we don't really have 3 weeks, we only have 2 weeks, then we can modify the activity and with a little bit simplified idea. So here I provide another alternative schedule. I just changed the evaluation from the group presentation to the individual quiz. So they need to, we test their understanding about the knowledge and in the quiz. This is just something we want to help students to learn, and we also let them understand what is the expectation for the assessment. And because the presentation takes time, they need to prepare present take time. So, taking the individual quiz will solve the time constraint. Actually, Jigsaw activity, it can be provided in many different environments. And in a face-to-face in class, I think it's very popular, and it's getting popular in online environment, especially during the COVID and afterward. And just because, in online environment, it usually being criticized that the students work alone, they were isolation, they don't really know how to work as a group. And Jigsaw activity actually can resolve these concerns, especially right now with the technological tools supported, really make everything easy. We can use in a different synchronous and asynchronous communication tools to support students when they work together in a different time and frame or different locations. So working online, actually, we have several key considerations. Again, working in the online environment, the students are not in the same room, they are in a different time frame, maybe in different location. So the clear schedule and the timeline is necessary. We need to give students clear idea of what they need to do in this week. And the instruction has to be explicit, very clear, because in a classroom, if students have any questions, they can just ask and get answers. But in online environment, they don't really have that opportunity. So instructors has prepared the instructions either in text or in videos explicitly and to explain to students so they have an idea what they should do. What kind of tools will support the Jigsaw project is also very critical. We need to give students, is that using, for example, the discussion board, or we're using the synchronous conferencing tool for them to talk to each other. Because of these tools, we need to consider where they get enough technical support. And another big piece will be the workload. You can see the Jigsaw activity could be very complex because students are multitasks. They need to study, they need to talk to the group, they need to work group as a team. So we need to consider all the workload for them and give them a reasonable schedules and also outcomes. That including the resources we provide to them, because if they want to become familiar with the content as an expert, we need to provide them enough resources from the instructors or from the prompts or from the external experts. Certainly, the evaluation criteria is a key point for students to understand. So students need to, in the very beginning, need to realize what is the evaluation criteria for them so they can meet expected outcomes within the time frame. So this is all the key consideration, especially in a fully online environment, and we will encounter. The Jigsaw project a good tool for the teaching and learning? Absolutely. It's getting popularly in the higher education right now, especially during the COVID and afterward. Students, they will be able to contribute their individual knowledge and skills to the group. And they will also be able to work together with other people as a team. And this is all we want. We really want students to learn in an environment, no matter is in face-to-face or in online environment. And the literature also indicates actually Jigsaw activity promotes students learning efficiently and effectively, no matter in which subjects and disciplines. And also, I think the Jigsaw also activity in some this research, when they have using pre and post design, they figure out the student really understand the content in a deeper level. So this is getting really popular in the literature right now, in the higher education too. So this is why we want to present this activity to you. And if you are interested, I think there's some resources we provide here. No matter is the websites or on the peer review journals, you will find a lot of study and share the outcome.
Thank you for watching today's Teaching with Technology Brown Bag session. You can view all Teaching with Technology Brown Bags on the USU YouTube channel under the full ETI playlist. Have a nice day.